Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission meeting to order. Call roll, please.
Cox?
Present.
Hold on a second. I don't seem to have mics. Cullen? Natoli? Dickinson?
Here.
Yee?
Here.
Waters?
Here.
Pennell?
Here.
Pratt?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a quorum. This meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the government affairs channel on the Sacramento cable system. Today's meeting is being cablecast live and will be repeated Sunday, June 8th at noon. A VHS copy is also available for checkout from any library branch. Members of the audience wishing to address the commission should fill out a speaker identification form located on the back table and give it to the secretary. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the commission and state your name for the record. Thank you.
That's what I'm saying.
Item 1, 1996-97 Cable Commission budget.
Mr. Chairman, members, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good, cool afternoon.
Volume up, Rich.
Diane, can you turn the volume up a little bit? Is that better?
So that's who he is.
The budget presentation before you is a consolidated budget presentation, which we started to do last year for the first time. It includes the total budget for the Cable Television Commission, which is the operating budget as well as the grantees. At this point, I'll provide some general figures and numbers on the overall budget. Ask the community programming grantees to briefly summarize their budgets, which you have before you in summary form and also in detail form from about 2 weeks ago. Then I'll come back and review the administrative budget, the Metro 14 budget, and respond to any questions. Overall, the overall budget is up 1% from last year, from that which you approved at this time last year. That 1% adjustment primarily has to do with the expectation that the protective suit will actually go to trial in this next budget cycle, and that accounts for about a $70,000 change. The operation budget, that is the portion of the budget that relates to that which the commission offices control, that is the administration and regulation, Metro 14, contingencies, etc., show a 9% reduction from approved budget to approved budget. That's the overall. In terms of the proposed budget highlights or summary issues, as you can see, the community programming is funded at the allocation numbers you approved in March at $1,003,500. We've allocated $288,000 and some change for the protective trial. This is about $70,000 higher than last year, as I mentioned. There's revenue distribution of $525,000, almost $526,000 to the cities and county. You may note that this is slightly above the number from last year. Recall that this is the first year we've gone to variable settlement payments from Sacramento Cable Television, and the license fees from Cable America have begun to pick up a little bit. That's why the odd number. And I point out that the commission has, according to our calculations now, $552,000 and some change as an undesignated reserve. This is parallel to the $2 million that was available earlier this year. You ask where it comes from. It comes from, as you'll see later today, in the transfer process. The franchise transfer has cost less than I anticipated back in February, and as you'll see, the transferring partners have agreed to reimburse us for those costs up to $50,000. So that's one piece. Second, our expenditures during the current year are less than I thought they would be when I made rough estimates in last September. And finally, I tend to budget conservatively. If we can accrue savings that way, that's what we do. Those are my comments on the overall budget. Now, to let the community programming grantees briefly summarize their budgets to you is my recommendation. And I suggest that you lead with, I believe the first speaker signed up should be the Ed Consortium.
Ron Cooper.
Was it Ron?
It's either
Rich, I have one general question on the breakdown where you have
call
the
Costa
proposed
instead.
budget.
I didn't know she was
Yes, sir.
supposed
You
to
break
be
it down
first.
as to
The next
regulation
one.
and programming.
Yes, sir.
Can you clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, regulation administration is that side of the commission's operations having to do with the meetings, the enforcement of the franchise, consumer services. Programming is what we're spending on Metro Cable 14 to cablecast these and other meetings. And those are the line item distinctions between those two
All
categories.
right, got it.
It's my recommendation that you allow that we go through in order that the documents are in your binders, and that would be the Ed Consortium would be the first to summarize their budget. Is that
Penny Costanis?
Liz, Penny, whoever? Okay.
I think I know that lady, but I'm not sure.
I haven't seen you for a while.
Hey, it's really wild. Somebody told me you moved out my district.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, now I can be nasty.
We did. Good afternoon, Chairman Pratt and members of the commission. My name is Penny Costanis, and I am the 96-97 chairperson of SECC. You have before you the SECC 96-97 annual report. And you also have in that report an overview of our budget. In interest of time today, SECC would like to postpone our full report to you until your next meeting. However, if you review the first page of the report, plus the budget page, which is on page 10, you will get an overview of what's going on as far as our major goals and what we plan to expand and build on our current services. We'll be pleased to answer any of your questions today if you want to, but we thought that we could give you a more detailed report since a matter of time today. We have many speakers that are coming forward, and we thought that you could take a look at this, and if you have questions to ask of myself or of Liz Rhodes, we'd be happy to do so today.
Any questions, Penny?
On page 10 is the budget, so you can take a look at that.
I have a question for Penny. Penny, how do you become an honorary member of the board?
An honorary member of the board?
I see Jay has ascended to that august title.
Yes, he has.
He's not
Yes.
here today, but how do you achieve that status?
Well, once you retire from the profession, you can, as long as you're still involved in some manner with the cable company and cable and what's going on in education, then you can become an honorary member.
I see. Okay.
And that's what's happened with Jay.
I'm going to watch this board and see how many honorary members
I know.
you have.
Yes, right, yeah. No, I won't be an honorary member for a while yet. I'll hang around for a while. Yes.
Well, if anyone deserves to be, Jay certainly does.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you.
Cox? I do have some questions.
Yes.
Penny, I'm very happy to wait till next month to review your budget in detail. And while I'm not sure this board has in the past looked at every particular line item of the grantees, but since you have given us that opportunity by presenting a budget called a grant application with all the various line items, would you do the courtesy before you come back to us of telling us what you actually, what your budget was last year and what your estimated expenditures are this year in order that we may compare that revenue and personnel expenses and services and supplies, fixed asset acquisitions and projects in order that we might have some idea as to the efficiency of your organization?
Fine. Yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
All right.
Yeah, and that would be very appropriate for the next meeting when we go into more detail with it then.
All right.
Yes, if that's all right with you,
That'd be
we'll have that all for you. And if we can, we'll hopefully get it to you before the next meeting, so you'll have a chance to take a look at it and be able to understand what we've been doing and be able to have your questions ready for us
All
then.
right. Thank you,
okay?
Mr. Chairman.
All right, fine.
Thank you. Rich? Now is it Ron Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper? I was bound and determined to get you up there.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Ron Cooper, Executive Director of Access Sacramento. And also, for sake of brevity today, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have. We distributed the document last month's board meeting on May 2nd to give everybody an opportunity to take a look at it. And we'll be happy to supply the information that Supervisor Cox is requesting.
Thank you, sir.
And I would just very briefly like to point out that in the 95, the year of 95, 96, there were many, many accomplishments. We look forward to even more with the various partnership arrangements that we've been able to arrange and funded with the augmentation funds that we received over the past 2 years. And so by next month, I should be able to report in even greater detail about those partnership arrangements and final negotiations of them, in particular the NeighborNet with the Net at Two Rivers project and working with the City of Sacramento and the neighborhood associations. An expansion of services at the Coloma Center, an expansion of services in cooperation with our new partner at Cosumnes River College, and the use of their facility for the public as well. And KBIE and a unique video project that we're going to be working on together. And so we look forward to greater detail next month. And if there are no further questions, I'll conclude my comments.
Any questions of Mr. Cooper?
I have just one additional request, and that is that there may be a time somewhere in the future for all of the grantees where grant funding is not there. Is it possible for you to put in your financial statement a line that accounts for depreciation in order that we might have a complete understanding as to the actual financial condition of the entity based upon a true accounting status? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Mr. Chairman, the pink sheets in your packet are for the Religious Coalition. This is their operating budget, but you provide them no funds. Under the previous First Amendment decisions, you're granting to the You've continued the grant to the Religious Coalition of their channel, which you inherited from Cablevision in their franchise award, and you've made no changes to that since then. So my comment here is that this budget is for your information, for you to know that these are the resources, the outside resources put into Channel 20, but you have no authority over it.
Thank you. Jan Tillman.
Good afternoon, Chairman Pratt and Commissioners. I'm Jan Tillman, Executive Programming Director for KVIE Channel 6 and Channel 7. Each of you have a summary program plan and budget in front of you. In brief, our plan calls for sustaining the high quality of programming in our next fiscal year that we have achieved over this past decade, along with the innovative community service announcement interstitial material. And we also plan in the next fiscal year to begin assertively pursuing new revenue opportunities to support the service. In the interest of time and your agenda today, we also will do our full program plan in your next meeting. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Okay, thanks, Jan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to comment that just to thank the grantees, I've asked them to keep their budget presentations brief. They have videotapes to run today and some other things, but I believe other items on our agenda need our time today, so they are cooperating very, very nicely. KXPR KXJZ is a community programmer on the audio side, and they receive a relatively small stipend from you. Their budget is before you as well. If there are any questions, there are people here to answer, but it is fairly straightforward. As you recall, we use the KXPR audio background on our channel whenever we can. That's primarily what your grant is for.
Are we to the point where we would want a motion on approving the budget?
Not at this time. I'd like now, if that's a brief summary and opportunity for general questions with the grantees. I'd like to review in a little more detail the overall budget and discuss the administrative regulatory budget and Metro Cable 14. First to the overall budget, I'll speak from the May 31st budget transmission and the 5 or 6 items there. I have provided to you additional data for your analysis if that is helpful. But going through each of the pages, as I mentioned, the Cable Television Fund has a $500,000 reserve. think I've tried to explain where that's coming from, how that's been generated. Looking at administration and regulatory activities, component one of our budget, on a year-to-year basis, the approval amounts are the amount approved last year and the amount approved this year show an actual reduction, but the amount we actually spent last year to the amount I'm recommending be authorized this year shows an increase. Primarily that you'll see in the description, you'll see what the changes were. We were able to keep one big area, general counsel costs down. We had no new litigation, and as you know, I work carry it hard, but try to do as much work internally as we can. We did have a $13,000 credit last year from PERS based on their actuarial analysis. I like to think that the commission staff are staying healthy, but they have been doing a reevaluation of small departments through PERS. And also, we are not proposing the fixed asset component that we were last year. So that's the component, or pieces of the component for administration and regulatory activities. Component two on litigation, I mentioned briefly earlier. This is the year we believe the protective case will come to trial, and we see that reflected in the actual cost. For the last 2 years, we thought it might come to trial, and we are the plaintiffs. The defense attorneys have succeeded in delaying things. So last year we had considerably higher amount budgeted. We didn't spend it all, or the attorneys didn't spend it all. We think it will occur next year. Under component three, you've seen the detail tied to the community programming activities. You extended last year's base plus augmentation into a new base this year. The community programming grantees are funded at 100% of what they were funded last year. As you compare numbers, you will see a $38,000 change in community programming funding. That was your one-time grant award last year to the city of Sacramento to improve the vote total machine and the graphics at City Hall. So that amount did not pass over. That was a one-time expenditure and did not move forward. Questions so far? On government programming now, moving to page 5 of the May 31st report, talking about Metro Cable 14. We've put together in the aggregate the costs for the various functions, the various activities Metro Cable 14 covers, and I want to advise you or bring to your attention two things. One is that we didn't spend all the money granted to us last year for the cable casting of new government meetings from new entities. Remember last year I proposed to you and you approved any outside entity could have 3 meetings cable cast at your expense on your budget. We didn't spend all of that. I don't recall in my head right now how many we did do, but we did 20 to 30 additional government meetings. So we proposed to roll that service forward this year and continue that program unchanged. Secondly, as commission staff have melded into the county's strategic planning process, we've tried to identify where we think we fit role-wise. And with a relatively minor increase in cost, we see that we can provide technical assistance to city and county department heads, but primarily county department heads, in making presentations to the Board of Supervisors and other entities in this chamber. We feel we have the equipment, the technical expertise, and we want to make our services available, essentially market our services to assist other departments in doing 3 to 5 minute presentations to you. We have this equipment in the chambers, but we also now have the software and the humanware to assist others. I'm recommending in the budget that we acquire a laptop computer that we can loan to other departments, place here in the podium, and assist them beforehand in preparing presentations to you. So those are the two key factors, or two highlight things for Metro Cable 14. This presentation assistance we will absorb within existing resources. We're not going to add new staff for that function. I have recommended in this budget $4,200 or $4,500 for that laptop, and there are some other incidental, relatively small equipment items that we're going to replace on Metro Cable 14. VCRs take a terrible, terrible beating because of the volume of playback that we do, and some other testing equipment. We are putting in reserve, though, the Metro 14 plan, and just briefly, last year we completed upgrades of the character generators. The year before, we had a 3-year plan where we phased in and put in new cameras that worked out so that we could run this room and the other rooms with less light, less heat on you. We finished that. We want to come back to you in January with a proposal to begin a phase change of the recording equipment. We have master playback decks now that are 12 years old, that are reaching the end of their useful life. We have a playback machine. Some of you have seen, we'll show it to you at some future meeting, that is 14 years old now, a mechanical device that we've bought in other machines and salvaged parts from other places. We're getting at the point where we need to begin a replacement plan. We'll come back to you mid-year for that. So that is not in your budget. If you approve that replacement plan for Metro 14 equipment, that would be a budget change, something we'd probably look at in January or February. With that, I'd be happy to take specific questions on specific aspects of the budget. You do have the revenue distribution in your budget. That will be automatic, and that is pursuant to the 20% of incoming revenue being distributed to the cities and county based on population. That's component 4. Be happy to take any questions.
Sure. Rich, that playback machine that you showed me here 6-8 months ago was fairly adequate at the time. Is it going to last till mid-year? Have you been able to make any adjustments to it all? Because I know you were having problems.
What we did was City of Roseville surplus theirs, and we gave them $500 for it. So we have a spare part, just about everything. We've had to make a few parts as they've broken. The staff's done a pretty good job. I asked the same question about 10 days ago. We feel comfortable that we can continue within the current fiscal year with what we've got. If we don't, our backup plan is that we will throw people at it. We would have people do the playback manually.
Yep.
That's our backup.
Pay their salary. May as well come ahead sooner with the better equipment. Thank
Exactly.
you. I got it. Excuse me.
Jimmy?
Rich, on the revenue distribution, $525,000,
Yes, sir.
when would that be made?
We generally make the revenue distribution in the 3rd quarter of the fiscal year. We just completed making the distribution this week for this year. That's no particular reason. That's just generally when we've done it. It's been a historical pattern for us.
So when is the 3rd quarter?
Now.
Now?
Yes. It usually happens around April 30th.
All right.
We're a little bit late this year. We've been sort of sidetracked on the transfer.
Good.
Any other questions?
We talked about last year, and you demonstrated for us titling more than just the items that are being heard, but a short description. And I haven't actually noticed that's been implemented beyond the demonstration. Maybe I just missed it. But the reason I raise it at this point is I thought if that's a somewhat labor-intensive exercise and has been done on a limited basis only, if at all, should we consider more resources in the Metro Cable 14 budget to do that, if we were interested?
No. What Supervisor Dickinson is mentioning is something that we agreed to last year, something that we support. We went through a staff turnover this year, and while we ended up putting the right people in the job, we haven't totally settled down with when Ann Johnson left. That was her responsibility, and we're reorganizing it. By your saying it now, we're going to put some more priority back on it and get that back into effect. It isn't that we're not
for some time. We're not noticing.
We had it up and going for a while. It is a staff challenge. We had it running for 3 months, Ty? Yeah. And then we lost it when Ann moved over to the assembly, and we'll bring it back up. It is labor intensive, and it's something that I'm a bit cautious about. We have to pre-program the keywords and be sure that it requires our staff people in the back to be with us during the meeting to know what's being talked about and to have the right keywords tied in. I'm concerned about things being typed on the fly. I'm guilty of mistyping public quite often, and having that go out on that channel concerns me.
As long as you add letters, you're fine.
If you have them all there, you're fine. Yeah. So we have worked through the procedures. The procedures are written. I believe we can have that settled down within the next week.
So that's not a function of.
It isn't a function of staffing.
Insufficient personnel. It's a function of expertise of existing personnel.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you think you're at a point where you can start doing that again?
I believe we can be there very, very soon.
Okay. I'll watch.
Sam?
Rich, with the city and the county both in budgets, I guess my question is, with this unspecified reserve?
Undesignated reserve, sir.
Undesignated? Okay, maybe I don't have the right word, but you know what I'm talking about, so that's fine too. If we want to send that back to the general funds of all of the cities that are involved, can that be included in the approval of the budget?
At your discretion, yes, that's an amendment.
So that can be an amendment to the budget.
That can be included in the budget resolution at your discretion.
Mr. Chairman, when that comes, I would like to move that to make sure that those reserves go back to each the city and the county as an amendment.
How much we got this?
532,000 is the reserve he's talking about?
552.
552? Or 532, 552?
And some change.
And some change.
Item C, Rich?
I can stay with you and see what item C was. Within the budget today, within the budget resolution before you, in addition to the community programming budget being authorized, I'm recommending, per your policy direction 3 months ago now, that you extend the existing community programming entitlement grant agreements by 3 years. So there are amendments in your package. The resolution addresses that. The resolution directs it authorizes the chair to sign those extensions. So that's one more of the factors that are included. I'd also point out that your budget resolution provides cost of living and equity adjustments to commission employees as tied to the county salary scale and the county decisions. I understand that the county is not making any, or may not be making any such adjustments this year, but as we've done before historically, the commission's pay scales are tied to the county, and that language is in it. It's important that I call it to your attention, as well as operating agreements to extend the services for Commission Counsel with McDonough, to extend the VideoMate engineering services with the company that maintains our cameras and tape decks. That covers, in brief form, the overall operating budget as well as the overall budget.
Any questions or comments?
Is there anyone wanting to speak on this item, Mr. Pratt?
We have no speaker sheets.
Okay, no one coming forward then, that I would move that we adopt the resolution, and I think we'll deal with Sam's as a separate issue because that's part of the whole budget, and we can just, it's the 552,320, that portion, that undesignated reserve. That would go back to the parent entities by the split.
Yeah, but I thought, my understanding, Ms. Collins, was that if we move the budget, I don't see why. I guess my question is, why do we want to separate?
I didn't know if you needed two separate.
That's why I asked the question.
At your discretion.
Yeah, because I think all it is an amendment to the budget. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, so instead of putting it into the undesignated reserve column, we would just put it into going back on the split to the parent entities.
Based upon the criteria that was used last year, I guess, and it went back to each of the entities.
That's population distribution, is that correct?
Yes, that's what it was.
That's correct. Your current policy is to distribute based on the on the 10-year population.
By the census.
And I have those numbers if you'd like them. I can tell you what those spreads would be.
It's the same as what's currently going out in the other monies, correct?
That's correct. Very, very close.
Yeah, it'll be right close to what's already being distributed, and that's fine.
Could you just refresh us what the city's share is? As an
the
example?
city's share based on the 1990 census for the 552,000 is 196,088.
Okay. Or about 35.5%.
Right.
If Ms. Collins accepts the amendment, I'll be more willing to give her a second.
That's fine.
That's fine.
The county's 335.7.
Okay, we have a motion that's been seconded. Any last comments? Jimmy?
Rich?
Sir.
If we did what the amendment wants to do, are you comfortable with the contingency?
Yes. We have two contingencies within your budget structure. One is I recommend that you put a $10,000 operating contingency in the budget. Separately, the commission has operated for about 10 years with a $150,000 designated reserve. That's shown in the budget detail. That's separate from anything shown here that you're appropriating now. You appropriated that about 10 years ago. So we always have $150,000 in the bank.
And you're comfortable with that?
Yes, sir.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think that the figures that you gave are not quite accurate because they don't add up, but it's approximately that, correct?
It's close.
Right.
Close, and because the total that was at least given was the 552,320, and when I added up the two, at least I think I heard you said it came to 531,788, and so there's a difference, and so you'd probably just want to rework the numbers, but at least the split is about that, so that's fine.
Okay. We did this morning. When you're out there at 4 decimals, we
have a motion to adopt items A and B on the agenda with Mr. Pennell's amendment. Call for the vote.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item number 2, notice public hearing, Sacramento Cable to Comcast transfer request.
Move to open the public hearing. Do we have to do that?
No, I don't think so. I think you just do it.
I'm so used to doing it.
I know you guys do it.
Oh, God. You guys want
Well, this is, we have two things for you. One is mine and one will be coming from Comcast. But this is what this week has not been. And in case you haven't seen the press releases we get on Channel 14, this is a press release we got earlier this week. But this hasn't been that kind of a week. It's been better. But this was National Headache Awareness Week, June 2nd through 8th, and we're doing much better than that. Comcast has requested, before we begin the detailed discussion of the transfer, that they have a brief, I think they said a 5 or 6 minute videotape they'd like to run. Our budget discussion has stayed within the time frames we've talked about, I believe are appropriate. So if the staff could queue up Comcast request for an 7 minute, 8 minute videotape on what Comcast is, I'd like to recommend that we run through that first, and then we will go through each of the 6 factors and the transfer process as we've recommended. And we have a very fancy electronic gizmo that helps us queue up the tapes and stuff. They gave it to me just before the meeting. It goes like this.
Tupelo, Mississippi, more than 30 years ago, when 3 young men from Philadelphia, Ralph Roberts, Julian Brodsky, and Dan Aaron, began selling their cable TV service door to door, all over Tupelo. The year was 1963, and those pioneering efforts proved to be the start of something big. Today, Comcast Corporation is one of the most formidable cable TV, communications, and programming providers in the world. Funny how things turn out sometimes.
From its modest beginnings in 1963, Comcast now provides more than 9 million customers around the world with entertainment, communications, and information services every day. With the strategic guidance of its founders, Chairman Ralph Roberts, Vice Chairman Julian Brodsky, and board member Daniel Aaron, and the energized and visionary leadership of second-generation President Brian Roberts, the company's record of enlightened management, steady and impressive growth has positioned Comcast at the forefront of the communications revolution. With the resources, ability, and motivation to provide every customer with cutting-edge technology and responsive personal service. Comcast operates in 3 distinct but strategically related arenas: wired, wireless, and content. The wired operations, led by President Tom Baxter, include clusters of cable systems in 19 states, serving 4.3 million subscribers from coast to coast, with additional operations in the United Kingdom. Comcast's strategy of clustering cable systems, that is, creating geographical service regions in which we serve as many customers as possible, produces tremendous economies of scale, strong brand name awareness, and definite marketing advantages. Right now, over 80% of Comcast subscribers are grouped in just 10 clusters. By decentralizing control and relying on local management, each Comcast cable system develops its own unique personality. The result? Real community involvement, a staunch commitment to local programming, a local sensitivity to the needs of local customers, and a system of regional 24-hour customer service centers that has become the industry benchmark for both customer satisfaction and response time.
You guys are definitely wired, that's for sure. But what comes next for Comcast Cable? What's on the horizon?
The cable modem. It's not what's next at Comcast, it's what's now. In Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida, Comcast trial participants are living in the future. By connecting their computer's cable modem to Comcast's fiber optic and coaxial cable network, customers now have immediate access to current online and internet services, with information being delivered at hundreds and eventually thousands of times faster than telephone modems. Comcast is also introducing the digital cable box, which will increase our customers' ability for control and choice in their TV viewing. And with our ownership position in Prime Star, a direct broadcast satellite service offering up to 95 channels of entertainment programming, Comcast has added 70,000 new customers. Comcast isn't just talking about the digital information highway. We're paving the way.
All that new stuff is really exciting. Things are changing so fast, but I want to know more. Tell me about Comcast Wireless.
As president of Comcast Cellular, Don Harris oversees a division that serves nearly 700,000 customers on a daily basis, from northern New Jersey, Philadelphia, and eastern Pennsylvania, south through Delaware. With varied and flexible rate plans and advanced features like directory assistance with connection completion at no extra charge. It's all part of Comcast Cellular's ongoing commitment to developing superior wireless applications, like digital paging systems, wireless credit card authorizations, and wireless PBX systems for hotel chains and corporations. Efforts like these have turned Comcast into a market leader, achieving the second highest market penetration anywhere in the nation. Comcast Wireless is connected to the future now.
Wow, that was quite a ride. But I hope it's not over. Where do we go from here?
Comcast's third concentration involves program content and begins with the world's largest electronic retailer, QVC, with President Doug Briggs at the helm. QVC has captured the largest single share of the rapidly expanding $4 billion electronic retailing market. Last year alone, QVC served more than 4.8 million customers, processed over 70 million phone calls, and generated $1.6 billion in net sales. From computers and electronic equipment to fashion, entertainment, and home products, QVC's ever-expanding product mix features the world's most respected and recognized brand names. With the launch of iQVC, accessed through the Microsoft network, Comcast has become a major player in online electronic retailing, an area of boundless profit potential.
Shopping, my favorite pastime. And with QVC, you can shop till you drop without ever leaving your house. What else is going on with content at Comcast?
Comcast Content and Communication, C3, an exciting Comcast partnership under the direction of Chairman and CEO Richard Frank, former chairman of Walt Disney Television, and the current president of the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. C3 is maximizing Comcast's interest in numerous cable channels as part of its mission to develop superior programming for cable, computer, and broadcast networks. Comcast has purchased a majority interest in a new joint venture that will own and operate the Philadelphia 76ers NBA club and the Philadelphia Flyers NHL team, along with 2 indoor arenas, the Core State Spectrum and the brand new Core State Center. And Comcast's new regional sports channel will debut in fall of '97. We believe ownership of programming content will be a key to success in the new century, and Comcast is there now.
Wired, wireless, content. Now I understand what Comcast is all about. But as a famous Broadway producer always used to say, how are you going to close the show?
It's been more than 30 years since 3 young visionaries pursued their dream down in Tupelo, Mississippi. Today, Comcast, still enriched by its founders on a daily basis and inspired by its president and entrepreneurial culture, is pursuing growth and expansion with agility and creativity, balanced by prudent management of our fiscal resources and strategic precision. It's a management philosophy that has nurtured Comcast into a publicly traded corporation, a workforce more than 12,000 strong, and revenues in excess of $3.3 billion, with $1 billion plus of operating cash flow. Comcast's cable business generates more than $700 million in cash flow, one of the highest cash flow per customer ratios in the industry. Comcast has the financial flexibility to take advantage of acquisition opportunities like Group W, Storer Broadcasting, McLean Hunter, and EW Scripps, and attract substantial investors like the California Public Employees Retirement System, which made their largest single investment in the cable industry when they partnered with Comcast to purchase McLean Hunter. These moves have resulted in Comcast becoming much less leveraged than other cable companies. As Comcast looks to the year 2000 and beyond, we will be pursuing more strategic alliances like our partnership with Sprint Spectrum, which will be a nationwide provider of digital personal communications. We will be substantially expanding our program and content development through C3. Our cable operation will be offering new and improved residential telephone service. Our goal is to meet our customers' need for greater connectivity in entertainment, information, and telephone service anytime, anywhere.
Mr. Chairman and members, we'll begin this process this afternoon by recommending that you open the public hearing, and we take some action of the chair, I believe, right? That it's necessary that this is, and I can advise you that we have properly noticed this meeting, this public hearing, in all the right places.
The public hearing portion of this meeting is now open.
The presentation today and this analysis has been a joint effort. I won't go through all the names, but I want to thank the people, all the people sitting at the table on my left, and some of these folks over, all these folks over here on the right as well. We set out a month ago at your last meeting with the goal of bringing you, or of saying to you that if we couldn't bring you a clean package today, it wouldn't be because of lack of effort on staff's part. And I'm happy to say that we have before you today a set of recommendations and a document whose most frequent word is agreed to. So at this, as of now, we have a list of agreements that I think are very worthy of the efforts that we put into it. We need today to brief you on the factors which your ordinance requires be considered and be met by clear and convincing evidence. We're going to summarize those for you. The staff's job is to reference and summarize for you all these factors and all the material that we've gathered. Some of the binders are before you. I have boxes in my office. We've distilled it. I want to summarize that for you and move on through very quickly. These are the factors we discussed last week, but that the franchisee has the burden of proving by clear and convincing evidence the following. What staff is doing today is summarizing what's been presented and giving you our opinion as to whether or not the clear and convincing threshold has been met. This first issue is reputation. First factor is reputation, responsibility, and integrity. And we'll just go through this very quickly because we'll be seeing them several times today. The financial capability and capacity, the terms and conditions are not likely to raise rates. These, Jay Smith here in the center will be discussing. At the time of the transfer, that we're in compliance with all the documents and ordinances. I'll be addressing most of those aspects. And finally, that the installation is complete. I'll speak to that. And one that's very complicated, that the transaction will not detrimentally affect the public interest. In the document, in the staff report before you, rather than providing individual or separate reports from all of us who participated in the analysis, I merged them into one document. But in specificity, Liz before you is speaking now for the community programming grantees who prepared one portion of the report. Jay Smith, as President of Public Knowledge, prepared the portion of the report on factors B and C, and Ken Fleming, the City Affirmative Action Officer, prepared his portion of the report having to do with reputation. That is collectively in one document for you. There are other documents as well, those before you. Again, to put in the record, the information we bring to you today is from a series of documents which are listed in the ordinance and on the record now. There is no requirement that you find that the clear and convincing threshold be met for every piece, only for each of the 6 factors we've just described overall. So there are some factors you'll see where we find that we haven't reached the clear and convincing threshold for that piece of the factor, but we're advising you that overall we've met them for the 6 factors. The Commission has very broad authority to condition this transfer. As of now, right now, your staff is recommending no conditions. We believe we have resolved all those and have agreements where there were conditions in the draft documents last week. But your ordinance does empower you with quite a bit of authority. If the staff would put up the summary of agreements now, these are things that are in the resolution to which the varying entities, be it Comcast, Sacramento Cable, or Scripps, have agreed to. They've agreed to comply with all anti-discrimination laws and equal opportunity laws, specifically in your transfer. Comcast Corporation, that is the ultimate parent, the one we just saw the videotape about, will execute a guarantee of all the obligations of the franchise. Comcast Cable, its cable arm, will be a named franchise entity. It will be someone who you can hold directly accountable, even before you get to the guarantee, for the full and faithful performance of your franchise. These are the first 3. The next screen, please. They've agreed not to reevaluate equipment or other assets as a basis for making rate increases. There's provisions in the FCC rules where this could be done. They agree now that they won't. They won't raise results as a direct result of the transfer. This is not to say that rates won't go up. This is to say that the transfer itself will not trigger rates. Rates will go up as the FCC allows, but no build-in or pass-through of costs from the transfer. There will be no pass-through of settlement fees. These are what we call franchise fees, or they are settlement fees to us, but there is an open dispute that these be passed through to subscribers, which would be a rate increase to subscribers. We've agreed in that until some higher authority, be it the FCC or the court, make a determination over our dispute, they will not be passed through to subscribers. There's a pending rate complaint with the FCC that, should that be resolved in our favor, we're part of the FCC backlog that goes to August 94, that if that is in the favor of consumers, that will go through to consumers and not be blocked as part of the transfer. Comcast agrees to complete the construction upgrade you adopted or you approved in the resolution in January of this year. Comcast agrees to carry the PEG channels on the basic service tier. That is the entry-level tier currently defined by the FCC. Right now, the franchise documents are void in this area, and the company could, at its discretion, put the PEG channels on a higher tier. We've got agreement, and the resolution binds to keeping those channels on the entry-level tier. Basic service tier, so you may hear this term more today, is the FCC's term. Sacramento Cable calls the basic service tier their economy basic tier. Next screen, please. Comcast agrees, or Sacramento Cable agrees, and Comcast to operate, maintain, and provide the public education government upstream programming feeds. This is the way that our signal gets from this building to the head end and out on the cable distribution system. In point of fact, Sacramento Cable rewired our upstream feed for channel 14 in the last couple of weeks because picture quality was slipping due to some deterioration of the equipment. They will agree to maintain that responsibility. And they will agree to comply with the customer service regulations as they presently exist. I'll get into more detail on this with a graphic later. But these are the agreements that we're bringing to you now overall. I'd like to go to Factor A, the one having to do with the reputation, responsibility, integrity, reliability of Comcast, its directors, officers, employees, etc. We have several pieces of evidence that support this factor. The one that I'll address is what I consider to be the biggest one in this franchise transfer from my perspective, and that is one that we had clear delineation of the guarantor and the franchise entities. And if we could put up the organization chart slide now, I'd appreciate it. This graphic depicts the operational relationship. Comcast Corporation, as I mentioned, is the guarantor. They have signed as tight a guarantee as Harriet and her firm can put together. This is the ultimate. This is the top parent of Comcast. To me, this is the most effective single factor to know that the franchise obligations will be taken care of, is the fact that the parent corporation knows they've guaranteed this. This makes my job much, much easier. The shaded pink areas are the named franchisees. Each of these are joint and severally liable for the full and faithful performance. I don't believe there's another cable system, another franchise license in the country that has this level of performance guarantee of its cable television corporation. These combinations, had I not been able to put this chart before you, we would have probably not be here today, we'd still be working. In the area of affirmative action, EEO, Ken completed analysis of several big binders that Comcast provided us, their human resources material. He's given you extensive documentation and some recommendations which we followed through on in the report. And I'll have Ken summarize his area now.
Good afternoon, Chairman Pratt, members of the Commission. Again, my objective was to assess Comcast Corporation's equal opportunity and affirmative action responsibilities as it relates to their reputation in enacting those particular policies. The process that we used was to review the corporation's policies and procedures manuals, and we also reviewed FCC filings for several entities or subsidiaries within the state of California. And additionally, we solicited anecdotal evidence as to their track record in this area. Our findings as it relates to the manuals, we found that they were very comprehensive. We were very impressed with that. Those manuals, they show, in my belief, a firm commitment to the requirements of federal, state, as well as the Commission's requirements in the areas of equal opportunity and affirmative action. Comcast has agreed to address and enhance the areas where we found a need for addressing some deficiencies, and they have agreed at staff's request to make those enhancements. Relative to the FCC filings, we reviewed filings for 5 California subsidiaries. They are outlined in your book. With the exception of 2 of those, they were small entities employing fewer than 50 people. The 2 that were larger in scale, closer to what would be the configuration of Sacramento subsidiary, were Central Orange and Inland Valley. And the statistics for those particular entities were very good. The efforts to attain anecdotal evidence were unsuccessful. We contacted the New Jersey Board of Public Utilities, which oversees quite a few of the operations in the state of New Jersey, as well as the city of Philadelphia, and were unable to get any information. Those particular entities do not track EEO, AA information. They basically rely on the federal filings. Because of the size of Comcast operations, nearly 100 subsidiaries, our review was somewhat restricted. And because of that also, we were unable to make a finding that the corporation's performance in the area of EEO, AA clearly achieves the Commission standard of clear and convincing. However, we feel that with the implementation of the policies that are outlined within the corporation's manual, as well as the assurances and commitments made by Comcast, that their performance in this area will be more than adequate, and in fact would probably enhance the operation of a local affiliate in those particular areas. That's all we have.
Any questions? Ken, comments? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken. Harriet asked me to comment just to clarify. The resolution has terms and conditions. There are no conditions in the resolution or documents that the transferring parties don't agree to. I wanted to be sure we have all that. There are terms and conditions within in the documents. Additional factors, additional elements under the factor of reputation and integrity, which we looked at and are described in detail in your staff report. We made calls to the franchise authorities of Comcast systems with 50,000 or more subscribers. Talk with those people, ask specific questions about these criteria. We secured data from them and made a separate research of criminal, civil, and regulatory proceedings. I looked at their litigation history. I looked at their filings with the FCC and have nothing of a red flag to comment for you at that point. I did speak with CalPERS regarding, it's real clear that Comcast used CalPERS as a business reference, essentially. The data I show there are that CalPERS had $1 billion direct equity investment fund. They investigated 253 possible investments. They invested in 3 The first two in the $50 to $60 million range, the last at $250 million with Comcast. Slightly on the negative side was that one of the reasons CalPERS is impressed with Comcast is their ability to generate more revenue from their systems. So we'll have to watch and see how that materializes. With those elements to the factor A, I believe, and staff believes, that the clear and convincing threshold has been met. It's appropriate now to see if Comcast or its attorneys want to add anything for the record relative to factor A. Right. Factors B and C address the financial capability of Comcast to be equal to that of the current franchisee, of the franchise entities. And the factor C is one that generated the most conceptual difficulty for us, and that is that the transfer is not likely to result in an increase of rates or charges. The how-to of factor C presented a challenge. Jay Smith, as president of Public Knowledge, has been your financial advisor since the franchise wars of '83. Jay.
I'll talk about B first. I'm Jay Smith. I'm president of Public Knowledge, Inc. in Portland, Oregon. The first factor has to do with the financial capability and capacity, and the fact.
Excuse me. Can you folks hear?
Okay, thank you. The criterion is that the transferee, Comcast in this case, that its capacity and capability be equal to or better than, I suppose by inference, the current franchisee. In this case, Comcast is clearly bigger than E.W. Scripps Company. In terms of net assets, it's about 6 times as big. In terms of annual revenue, it's about 3 times as big. If you looked at the balance sheets from the point of view of an entity wanting security, the E.W. Scripps balance sheet is preferable. It's basically debt-free. Comcast, like many cable companies, is highly leveraged. I think the criterion here is really ought to be a comparison of Comcast to other similar organizations whose business is primarily cable or related programming or telecommunications businesses, and the key ratios for Comcast look very similar to the cable industry. So my conclusion would be that it is equal to E.W. Scripps in terms of capacity or capability. You're getting a larger company who has a concentration in the telecommunications industry. The second factor has to do with whether or not the transfer would negatively impact rates. And as you know, basic rates and what's called the cable programming services tier, right above basic, those rates are regulated. You directly regulate basic rates. The Federal Communications Commission regulates the cable programming service tier. There's some very technical rules that deal with how those rates are set in the regulatory scheme. I think to keep it fairly broad and general at this point, I would say that there are some things about the transfer which could potentially impact rates, but for those specific situations that we enumerated in our communications with Comcast, Comcast has agreed that there would be no negative impact on rates as a consequence of the transfer. And so based on Comcast assurances, which I believe are good ones and strong ones, I would also conclude that they've met the criterion here to satisfy the factor that there would not be an upward increase on rates strictly as a consequence of the transfer. So taking the two factors together, the financial capability, the rate impact, my conclusion is that Comcast, particularly through its assurances, has presented clear and convincing evidence that they would meet the criteria.
I have a question. Okay, I think it's really clear that when you look at that in terms of a transfer, you're looking at a very narrow set of issues that could influence rates. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, because I think I don't think that we should mislead people that there won't be rate changes. There will be. I mean, I think that's the history. I think what you're trying to do is put it to the narrow portion that the transfer in and of itself is not going to drive rates up.
Right, and I think that's a good point to emphasize. Rich had pointed out that there may well be rate increases within the scope allowed by the SEC rules. But the point here is Comcast has provided assurances that conditions triggered by the transfer itself will not be the cause of those rate increases.
And in much of the documentation that we got that related to the debt service, et cetera, and lack of that this transfer would cause. Okay, thank you.
The areas that we focused in are some of the examples have to do with the reevaluation of equipment and other assets, and those are the ones that Jay felt would most easily drive a transfer cost rate increase, and those are the ones we are protected from now by agreement.
Because when I was going through that, I recognized that it was a fairly narrow band, but
exactly.
Okay.
Rich, is there a way back when this commission was formed, is there some time when our ability to regulate runs out with the Sacramento Cable or whoever it's Comcast?
The commission's existence continues for the term of the franchise, and that is with the option is 2023. The authority to regulate the enhanced tier, it's called the Cable Programming Services tier, ends in March of '99, but that's now regulated by the FCC. As of current law, the authority to regulate the basic services tier, the entry tier, the one Sacramento Cable calls the economy basic, continues indefinitely.
Definitely. Okay, so it doesn't matter who the owners are, we still have that ability.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Is that, though, the trigger date that you talked about, the 2020 something?
2023 with the option.
That's the settlement agreement, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
That's the term of the franchise, and unless the franchise is renewed or extended in 2023, the commission would be out of business then as well.
Okay, thank you.
I don't plan on being here then.
You won't have anywhere to go.
A whole bunch of other folks.
These, as I mentioned, these were the two most difficult conceptual factors for us. We tried to summarize the documentation and evidence that has been submitted to us and to you. Is there anything that Comcast would like to add on this factor? Have we got it all on the table? Thank you, David. Any questions on C? On D? This factor is, at the time of the transfer, the current franchisee are in compliance with the terms, conditions, and requirements of the franchise ordinance, any rules, regulations, or determinations promulgated thereunder. 18 months ago, this is an interesting factor. This is one that most of the evidence has to come from staff. 18 months ago, I wouldn't and couldn't have been able to have said that. As you recall, I presented to you a list of areas where I felt at the time Sacramento Cable was deficient with your existing terms and conditions. I can tell you now that I don't, to the best of my knowledge and ability, Sacramento Cable is in compliance with all terms and conditions of its franchise. The examples or evidence I see of that are responsiveness to your regulations at a level of detail, which indicates to me that the other things are being taken care of. I look at filing of your license fees or your settlement fees and license fees. I look at filing of cross-filing of documents. I look and watch for telephone hold times. We check telephone hold times several times a week. To not be in compliance with your rules, those issues would have to be spotted. And again, you're paying me to watch for those things. Separately, Sacramento Cable Television routinely, at your request, comes before you and reports to you the status of its activities, its programming, its construction, etc., which is indicative of their desire and intent to comply with your regulations. And as I mentioned, the payments of their license and settlement fees are on time and on schedule. Therefore, I believe that Comcast is in compliance with Factor D of your ordinance. And unless there's something to add from, no, like Wayne says, no.
Mr. Chairman, when does the commission get to ask questions relative to the summaries?
I would say any time, so we can kind of keep it clean.
As we go through
along.
each one.
Let me just ask some questions that may be convoluted then, because I was frankly waiting maybe for a summary of this. But let me just ask a question, if I may, then, Mr. Chairman. Rich, do you have any information relative to prior acquisitions that Comcast has not kept its word, either contractually or at least in the spirit of the agreement?
We have, in our discussions with the franchise authorities, of the systems over 50,000. We identified no factors of concern.
Let me just ask you.
But there were factors raised by the community programming, by your community programming grantees on some of those issues. So the answer to your question would be yes.
So Comcast, in your judgment, does have some history of acquisitions, and not at least contractually or in the spirit of keeping their word.
I don't know if I could go that far. I may want to refer to Liz. My comment would be...
Before you do that, let me just ask you about some statements, and then maybe we can ask Comcast to...
Okay.
I'm sure my fellow directors have read some of these things, so I just want to inquire about them.
Right.
Okay. And maybe it's in the area of support for community programming, et cetera.
No, which we're not.
But Mercer County, Mercer Community College, on page 22, now I don't know who Mercer County is, and I haven't called them, but I may. It troubles me when promises mean nothing and Sacramento would be better off without them, will screw you when they can, is not my idea of a marriage made in heaven here. So what is the substance of that?
Let's jump in then to factor E, which is the issue of the transfer not being detrimental to the community interest. The section that you're quoting from, Mr. Cox, was a section prepared by and submitted by your community programming grantees, and Liz is spokesperson with Ron and Jan standing by. Liz, do you want to comment to that?
You want me to comment specifically to that, or to go through the full
presentation?
report?
Let me ask the questions, and maybe then you can encompass this, because I think if we have a marriage here, we might as well get started off on the right foot. We at least ought to understand what the rules are and how the game's going to be played, so that there aren't any surprises. Do you, and maybe you can address this, Liz, from a standpoint of the history of support of community programming. And then in addition to that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to know whether or not they have a history of mass channel transfer relative to the public entity in quotation marks. In other words, do they have a history of moving the channels up and down this game? We're kind of partial to channel 14. We could get used to other channels, but 14 is one number.
So you're not talking about moving channels, you're talking about moving channel alignment.
Say again, please. I didn't hear what Ms. Collins said.
I misinterpreted your question. I understand what you mean now. You mean the channel realignments.
But,
yeah, okay, I got it.
Apologize to you, I didn't know the lingo.
Jesus.
Realignment, do they have a history of realignment of channels within the basic tier, if you will? And do we have any reason to believe that Comcast will not continue to upgrade the system that's currently underway?
Yeah, we can.
The system has.
You've got questions in different areas, Mr. Cox.
I'm sure, and I didn't suggest that they were not in any different area. I just asked when we could ask questions, and those are the questions I have currently, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, could we continue with factor D and clear that, and then move into E and address Mr. Cox's questions as we go through?
I'm sure that would be fine.
And it might be then in Liz's prepared comments she will address or has planned to address those.
Okay.
Is that okay, Mr. Cox and Mr. Chairman?
Sam, I have a question. I guess I have a question too. Mr. Asbestos, can you give us an idea of how long the presentation from staff will be?
Depending on the response to questions, I would say 15 more minutes.
Oh, okay. Just one idea.
Proceed.
Okay. I think we're at factor D that Sacramento Cable had reached was at all terms and conditions that we're fine. Under factor E, the issue of completion of construction and the upgrade, and this is specific to one of Mr. Cox's questions. We certified completion of construction according to our franchise documents with a resolution several years ago, a final order of completion. We also included in that resolution a piece that was not there before, which was an agreement by Sacramento Cable Television that any dwelling identified within the imposed service area that was not wired for service would be wired within 60 days. And if it wasn't, for each day after 60 days, that subscriber would accrue free service, and the commission would accrue a penalty of $1 a day, then doubling after 10 days, and then doubling again. That has not been imposed. That has not been imposed now for almost 8 years. But my point to you is that we certified completion of construction, and we developed a remedy so that we would not have any infill problems with new construction within the imposed service area. Therefore, and thirdly, Mr. Cox, Comcast has agreed to be bound by the upgrade resolution you approved in January to bring the system to 550 megahertz and the 4 additional channels by next January.
Does that include all of the it's my understanding we have some new underground upgrades as well, and I'm not sure what they call, may very well be called realignments. I don't know. But I don't think it's been in my area yet. Been in Mr. Waters' area. That's where we started. But has that been completed?
Maybe let Wayne comment. It has not been completed. The resolution was that the full force and effect of your franchise was behind their agreement to have it completed by next January. We have, I haven't looked in a bit, but the construction progression for that was balanced among the socioeconomic areas, and it may be that his area got done and your area is coming up soon. Wayne, could you comment on 4th District?
Or vice versa.
Or vice versa, yeah. On where the upgrade has been activated?
That we're on the schedule.
You need to go to the...
We are on schedule. We're probably better than 60% of the way through. I can't tell you specifically what section I'm in right now, but I think I have over 100 and it's close to 210,000 homes passed as we speak today, activated.
Okay.
So
you're on schedule.
We're on schedule, correct.
Okay. That's answers my question. Thank you.
I'll point out that the transfer resolution does not address any upgrades above that which is currently authorized and required by your action last January. Many of the things you saw in the Comcast video are new technologies that would require additional upgrades. You'll know that Comcast intends to deploy those when they come to you for permission to implement some of those and build some of those. Therefore, I believe that factor E, that the installation of the system has been completed in a manner within the timeframes prescribed by the franchise ordinance. It reaches the clear and convincing threshold by the evidence which I've just described. And I believe Sacramento Cable concurs. Factor F, this is one that gave us the most work, the most difficulty. Other factors gave us the most conceptual effort. This one made the most hands-on effort. That the transaction will not detrimentally affect the public interest. And we could spend a lot of time defining the public interest. We did the best we could. I asked, and very helpfully and very cooperatively and with a lot of work, the community programming grantees made their own analysis and their own recommendations into this process. And if Liz would walk through what you've done and what your recommendations are, and to the extent that you can answer Mr. Cox's questions, good luck.
Thank you, Rich. I'm Liz Rhodes. I'm the Executive Director of the Sacramento Educational Cable Consortium. The report that I'm about to give you was compiled and agreed upon by Jan Tillman of KVIE and Ron Cooper of Access Sacramento. As Rich said, at his invitation, the community cable providers started to research the different Comcast systems of 50,000 subscribers or more. We spoke with several representatives, at least 3 in each community. And there were about 8 communities that we talked to. Our findings can be summarized basically in 2 comments. And the first one is the results of our research indicated that there was nothing in any of the other communities that replicated the scope, the depth, the experience, and longevity of Sacramento's program services. The second one indicated that, to the best of our knowledge, usually Comcast complied only with what the franchise documents required. In light of where we are in Sacramento, this created some concern on our part regarding Comcast's understanding of the significance of community programming and the importance of the relationship that exists in Sacramento between Sacramento Cable and the community programmers. It was important to us in our findings that this be completely understood by Comcast. During the past several weeks, we have worked extensively with Wayne Val and with Rich, and we very much appreciate their support in trying to come through to an understanding of what our concerns were and to meet the commitments as we felt were necessary in this area. We are pleased that Comcast has agreed to 4 of the original 9 points, and those are included in your resolution. However, most important to us is that Comcast has indicated that they will continue to support our activities as they currently exist. The community programmers have made every effort in our minds to be reasonable in our request, and at Rich's prodding to ask for and to try and maintain to what currently is and to ask for no more. Rich did ask that we indicate to you what our comfort level was with this area, since it has been a very difficult area for us. We are very comfortable at this point with our conversations with Wayne Val. He has really gone above and beyond to help us through this process. And through the process, we had hoped to be assured of Comcast's understanding of the importance and the significance of our services, and also as the new franchisee, their willingness to continue the level of support. So that pretty much is our report. I think in answer to Commissioner Cox, your question about Mercer County, one of the reasons that we asked more than, when we did our surveys, we asked more than one person, is that it's very easy to perhaps hit the wrong person. I don't want to belittle anything that came out of there, but what we tried to do was to stay away from the real specific things, but look at our findings in their totality. And it was the totality that caused us the concern, not the individual comments, because it is easy to get to one person who is unhappy with any given situation. So
how about the Boston system, where it says that does your operator wire schools and help with cable programs, and they responded not enthusiastically? Cool. Excuse me, on page 20, there may be some explanations. I'm just interested whether or not there is a history here of the courting period, if you will, only to find that there's an entirely different environment once the court has been concluded and a contract has taken place. And I'll be anxious to hear from Mr. Weintraub in just a few moments. On page 22, does the operator participate? Very limited, and I understand that's just very specific and very narrow. Does your operator support events in the school? It says no, but not, maybe NA means not applicable. But when you go through this particular document, there appears to me to be at least what you have said, and that is that Comcast historically has not participated at the level that this community has become accustomed to. Is that a fair statement?
I think that's fair from our perspective and from what our findings show.
And it's okay for us to be prejudiced and be parochial in this particular situation. That's where bargaining begins, is from our standpoint. But that's a fair statement, is that they have not participated in the community to the extent that the franchise has participated in the past.
Well, not to the extent that Sacramento Cable has worked with us.
I understand.
And that's where our concern was.
All right. Okay.
You done there?
I'm done.
Sir.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then how do we get in place some kind of a guarantee to this commission that we will have the level of service for these community programming events that they've grown accustomed to? Is there a way that we can, I don't know, Rich, if you want to answer that, or if you can answer me, is there a way that we can, is this built in so that we can, at somehow guarantee that this won't go away next year?
Well, I think we could all answer. This has been the topic of discussion for most of us for the last 10 days. The things that Comcast has agreed to are locked in with the full performance obligation of the franchise, the named franchise entities, and the guarantor. Now, there are some things that are intended but not locked in that the community programming grantees are comfortable with in the relative scope of the overall process. Fairly said?
Well, but what is our hammer, if you will, or guarantee that something next, and looking at the worst possible situation, next year they say, well, time out, we're not going to do that. We're going to eliminate 2 channels or whatever they may decide to do.
Harry can jump in. There's nothing, in my opinion, there's nothing of substance that falls in the category you just described, Mr. Waters.
Okay.
The discretionary things are relatively small. The number of channels, the provision of the channels, their existence for community programming, where they are placed in the system, the upstream feed are all now agreed to and will be locked in with the full faithful performance of your franchise. There are a couple of items that are relatively small in nature, and if I'm saying it wrong here, Liz, jump in, that are agreed to but not obligated by the full faithful performance of the franchise. But the discussions over that agreement are such that your community programming grantees are comfortable, in fact, I think Liz said very comfortable, about their existence.
All right. As long as I have the floor, I just, going through this report last night, I just highlighted a couple things. And there's 3 things that are really important to me as a commissioner. Number 1, rates. I realize there's only so much we can do about increasing rates down the road. And I've already spoken to the support of the community programming. And I guess the question that hasn't been addressed, or at least I haven't heard it, is what leverage do we have that they don't come in and reduce staff so that there's, instead of a one-day turnaround for a technician to come to your house to make a repair, it's a 3 or 4 day situation. The phone calls that we had many problems with, what's to keep them from reducing the people that answer phones. These are just a couple of things that I think, for the quality of the program people in Sacramento are paying for and enjoy, that I would like to see those 3 things in place.
I was going to address customer service, which is your last topic, as soon as Liz was complete.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Let me come back to this issue of community programming, and page 12 of the resolution, which has the findings, seems to principally capture the commitments in writing that I understand are being made with respect to community programming. Is that right?
That's correct. The actual agreement is on page 17, but it's restated on page 12.
Okay. And page 12 enumerates in writing the things that you alluded to or summarized, Rich. My question was, what either to you or to Liz, what are the items that are not included in this list?
Some of the items that were not included were those that were, I think, difficult to quantify, and I'd like at any point for Wayne, since he was part of this, to jump in on this one. But it was very difficult to include those in legalese or to put them in the document. So what we agreed to do was, at that point, to take those 4 items off the list of the items and include it in an umbrella statement of continued support at current levels.
What are the 4 things, Liz?
The 4 things were things such as the Cable in the Classroom magazine. Most of them were for education. It was extended wiring into the schools. Sacramento Cable has provided those services at cost to the schools and helped them design systems. There were converters to the schools. Sacramento Cable has provided converters needed in the school so that they were able to access the Cable in the Classroom programming, and then the Cable in the Classroom programming itself, I believe, were the 4 items.
Okay. So Cable in the Classroom, extended wiring, converters, and the programming itself. Are those the four?
For the wiring, yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure I've got I was writing.
Those were the other items, yes.
Okay, all right. And you felt that those were of such a degree of difficulty in reducing to a formula, if you will, or writing that you would leave those in just some broader terms?
I think it's more than just, and Comcast can speak to it as well.
Sure.
It reached a level of, this was a level of commitment that Comcast would not bring the full faithful performance of the franchise behind. We had this discussion many times about this being something that would be continued, intended to be continued, was very comfortable with, but is not something that Comcast was comfortable putting in at the contractual level of the full faithful performance of the franchise. In the last couple of days, extensive discussions on this issue, primarily with Liz, Ron, and Jan, who accepted pretty much on a handshake that these issues, that these factors would continue. And that was how we got here today. It was not Harriet was entirely capable of, and actually in the draft had articulated those. It was more of an issue of, is this something that the community programming grantees chose to push at that level? Harriet and I, being somewhat in the middle, knew that Comcast was pushing back the other way. If on an eyeball-to-eyeball basis, and maybe this is something that we haven't had here before, on a handshake, we're willing to, the community programming people are willing to go forward. I backed their decision. I basically took their decision and brought it to you that way. I don't find it unreasonable, however. We're at a level of detail that's very, very small.
Okay, and Liz, you referred to umbrella language, or I gather there's some statement about not diminishing the level of support I think I saw in here that is currently provided to community or access programming. I don't seem to spot it at the moment, but is that what you're referring to?
There's language in the document right now that says the Comcast franchise entities will support PEG activities in the Sacramento region under the same conditions as such support is currently provided by the Scripps franchise entities as follows. And then it lists the basically the three large items. And an agreement to continue to comply with all the franchise terms. That's the only language that's actually in the document.
Well, I'm sorry, what language?
If you go to page 12, where you were before.
Yeah.
17.
Or actually, page 17 is an easier.
Page 17.
If you go to 17, subsection C, like in Charlie, the first sentence in that says Comcast has agreed to support PEG activities in the Sacramento region under the same conditions as such support is currently provided by the Scripps franchise entities as follows. And then it lists the four major items. It does not list the other items that Liz was enumerating before.
And if I could follow up, if it says under the same conditions, much of what Scripps has been willing to do they're doing it, correct?
That's correct.
And so, perhaps Comcast will want to address that.
Well, I hope, yes, I hope they will. And I would ask that they do, whether it's now or later. Because I don't read that language as encompassing any of these additional items, and I think we ought to have on the record what, in one form or another, what their view is of these items, of these additional unenumerated items.
I have other elements to address this factor, but I think it's entirely appropriate to engage this dialogue with Comcast now.
Mine.
Van is calling.
So, yeah.
Good afternoon, Chairman Pratt, Commissioners.
That podium will go up.
The podium,
There's a button there, so you can get it if you're tall. So. Yeah.
Technology is wonderful.
Yeah, except it stops at too low a level, but.
I really appreciate the opportunity to address this issue because it has been a sensitive issue throughout the process. And I also will say publicly that I appreciate in the last correspondence that the community programmers made to Rich. The kind words about their wanting to work with Comcast and vice versa.
Could you state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is David Breidinger, and I'm the Regional Director of Comcast. I'd like to address just a couple of the comments that were also of concern to me, particularly the comments that the Commissioner Cox made. And when I first saw this report, and it's interesting because this particular comment from Mercer Community College, which disturbed me quite a bit, as it did Mr. Cox, happens to be a community in which I personally deal with.
What state?
Excuse me?
What state?
It's in New Jersey. And
maybe that explains it. I think that's good enough for me.
And I will say that, over the years I have had a very good relationship with these folks. And when I read this, I was very concerned. You will note, however, as Liz mentioned earlier, one of the reasons that Liz and the other cable community programming folks interviewed a number of people is because you don't know who you're going to get on what day and what attitudes they might have. You'll notice that the comments right underneath there are also by the same institution. Mercer Community College, notice the phone number is exactly the same. It's the extension that has changed. And notice what they said was that they have a good relationship with us, and on the second page they will say Comcast has been very supportive, and Dave B., which is referencing me, has been very accessible. The staff is very personable, and Comcast has pooled in specialists to help them. Notice totally two different comments. I will also, for the record, mention that I did have a conversation with Liz about this. The community programming folks were kind enough to host me for a day in each of their operations when I was out here a week and a half ago, and I spent the day with them. And one of the conversations that Liz and I had was, I said, Liz, I'm very concerned about this. If there is a relationship problem somewhere that I have, I want to repair it. And I approached Liz about it, and I said, it's interesting, in this, all of the research that you did, this is the only one where you didn't list the name of the individual who said it. And I found that interesting that there was no name for me to go back and find out who said this. I happened to be meeting with the college this week, and I talked to the two individuals that I've worked with over the years, and I would ask that you had mentioned, Mr. Cox, that maybe you would call them, and I would certainly ask you to do that to eliminate any concerns that you have. But I talked to those two, and I said to them, who at the college would have made a comment like this? And they said they talked to, there were two people who spoke to Liz, and they said they assured me that none of the people said these things. So I am obviously have concerns about this, and I know Liz has told me she will call this individual, and I assume she has the name, and that if that person allows her to give me his or her name, I will more than happy to call that person and find out where that relationship has gone wrong, if indeed it has. So I wanted to point out for you also that if you notice, the same two institutions, that they had an opportunity to choose a partnership with the local telephone company, Bell Atlantic, or Comcast, to work with them on this educational network. And notice that they chose Comcast to do that. I'd like to say a lot of that was because of the relationship, the positive relationship that I had with that school. Certainly Bell Atlantic has a lot more resources than we do as a company, huge. And they were doing educational networks like this all over the state. Yet they chose to work with us. And I would like to say, for the record, Mr. Cox, that I think that you will find that we have a good relationship with the school. On the other factors that were mentioned, I would like to tell you that many of the things that were issues that Liz and the programming folks did bring up, which are issues of providing cable in the classroom magazines to the school, and the other four items that were mentioned, we do in many of our communities. And we do that because it's good business to do that. We do it because we want to be a good corporate citizen in that community. Sacramento is unique, and it's unique in the area of public educational and government access because of this commission, because of the dedication you have of the public educational and government access programmers, and because of your staff your executive director. There is no other community that we serve that, number one, has the dedication to community programming that you have, or has the dedication of committing funds to educational programming. If you look at Philadelphia, where we pay substantially more in franchise fees to the city, not one penny goes to public access programming because there's not a commitment by the city for it. Here, there is a wonderful commitment for it, and we applaud that. And we know the importance to the community, and I'm here to say to you that that will continue. We'd like to do not only what's being done, but expand on that. One of the things I said at our last meeting is maybe there's some opportunities for us to look at educational networks. It's a business we want to be in, and look at interconnecting schools and doing the type of things we're doing across the country and are beginning to become more popular. I asked Wayne Vowell to have his engineering staff start to look at these things. So I want you to know that we are committed to working with the public educational government access folks in this community, and we personally applaud what you have done here, because it is second to nowhere else in this country.
Mr. Chairman, not to put too fine a point on it, but do I then understand you to be committing, if not in writing, at least to this commission in this forum today, if this transfer is approved, that Comcast will continue to do those things that are currently being done in connection with community access, including the programming scheduling, including the scheduling on the preview channel, including the installation and support of the Ingenious kits, including the wiring to schools, and including the cable in the classroom magazines, programs, and activities?
The answer is yes, that as stated in here, that we will continue to do them under the same conditions that Scripps has done them in the past, and the answer is absolutely yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have one additional question, Mr. Chairman. Is there anything else that you were prepared to put on the table that we didn't ask you for? You didn't address the issue with respect to the realignment of channels. Did you want to do that now, sir?
Yes, thank you. Again, we understand the importance of the location of channels. Our viewers, who for many, many years, and we're talking in this community, 13 plus years, are used to watching particular programs on particular channels, and one of the worst things you can do is move those channels and confuse them. We certainly understand the importance of where your channels are located. If for some reason in the future there is a plan for us to move them for whatever reason, as cable operators do around the country, we will certainly talk to this commission and talk to the cable access users as to why we think it's important to do that. There may be a reason to do that. It may have to do with digital boxes. It may have to do with how we provide them on the basic economy tier, as we said we would. We will certainly have the courtesy and the conversation with this commission and with the PEG programming users about that. But it is not a habit of us to move channels around, because we have customers who are used to channels in particular locations, and we like to cause the least amount of confusion for our customers as we possibly can.
And you'd allow this commission to be the final arbiter in that matter?
Based on the law, whatever the law is here in California and in the documents, that is certainly what we'll go by.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rich or Liz, wherever we left off.
Further questions on the community programming?
No, I would just like to make a comment, though, because I was very glad to hear Mr. Breidiger, and I assume that this is something that's also shared by Mr. Vowell, that the public access channels are a good part of the marketing effort of this cable system. When we look to the future of what's going to happen in terms of competition, there has to be an edge someplace. And certainly the wealth of local programming that's here, you look at that as a marketing opportunity, particularly when you look at the educational component. It is certainly, good to hear and refreshing to hear that there's a real realization of that, I think, finally coming within the cable industry, facing all of the different types of competitions that are out there. I know we certainly consider it an asset in this system. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have two additional elements to this factor. One is addressing Mr. Waters' comments about customer service. And if staff would put the slide up, I'd appreciate it. The customer service regulations proposed to you and adopted in 1990 and then amended in 1992 were precursors to what was adopted at the federal level. You were one of the first jurisdictions in the country with a set of tight customer service standards, standards which addressed number of days from call to response, rebates for outages, free service on a missed appointment, etc. The Cable Act, as revised and adopted in 92 and the Communications Act this year, has a provision in it that allows a cable operator to pass through the cost of complying with local customer service regulations which exceed the FCC standards, that increment. So I've tried to depict graphically what is before you in the resolution. It's something I believe is entirely reasonable, and I worked hard to negotiate it this way. Sacramento Cable could have passed through costs, the number of which I can't identify now, we don't know, for that increment of customer service requirements above the FCC standards. They haven't. What we've agreed to going forward in the chart before you is that the inflation, the increase in the cost of the increment can be brought to you, can be documented by Sacramento Cable, and upon your approval, which cannot be unreasonably withheld if the documentation is satisfactory, pass through. I think this is, again, an entirely reasonable approach. I'm trying graphically here to describe it for you. It says none of the base costs, none of the existing costs ever go through, but in negotiating and discussing, the point was raised by Sacramento Cable that this franchise continues for quite a few more years. And in the next 2 or 3 years, the increase in costs of complying with that incremental additional customer service standard may be small, but in 24 years, it might be significant. The control mechanism, however, is that the documentation must be provided by Sacramento Cable Television, and you become the ultimate authority in deciding that. I'm satisfied that this is a good decision on customer service. In addition, not on customer service, but within this element, 2 other things. One, the parties to the transfer, in this case Scripps, have agreed to reimburse the Commission for the direct cost of the transfer not to exceed $50,000. That's why earlier in the budget presentation today you were able to move $550,000 to your jurisdictions, because the direct cost, not staff costs, but the direct cost of the consultants, et cetera, are being reimbursed by Scripps. And finally, we talked at our commission meeting last month and made you aware that there is a lawsuit pending, and I think you've heard me say that Sacramento is the cable television litigation capital of the world. There's a lawsuit pending now between the partners of Sacramento Cable Television. We have before you, and we're recommending that a term and condition agreed upon in your franchise in this transfer resolution is an indemnification of the Commission for legal costs in defending any action it takes today relative to that lawsuit. I believe those risks to be relatively small, but it is a level of protection along with the guarantee that we negotiated into this transfer package for you. Any questions on Factor E? I believe Comcast has made comments it wishes to make. In total and balance, I believe the factors we have presented, while not each one meets the clear and convincing threshold as we may like for each individual piece of the factor, I believe the overall factor does meet the clear and convincing threshold. And in fact, I can advise you now as staff and collective with the consultants and advisors, is our belief that the totality of the evidence, and unless Harriet wants to add something more, reaches the clear and convincing threshold for you to approve the transfer resolution before you. I recommend you take public comment, and we would be happy to answer any questions from the Commission or the public.
Any questions? Robbie?
You still didn't address my concern here. I heard you talking about the rates probably won't go up to give the same kind of service and so on. But is there not, I'm not talking about the rates as much as what kind of guarantee do we have that they will not reduce their telephone answering staff by half the number, so we now are on hold for 10 minutes, that type of thing? What control do we have over that?
Okay, we have a standard in the, we have a standard in the customer service regulations that we adopted in 1990, which sets the average hold time at 90% of the time over a month period.
That will go in place with the transfer to Comcast.
Right, and we put the full faith and performance of the franchise behind it. Not that we would ever do this, not to scare Comcast, but if over an extended period of time I came to you and said, and say they had done that, They had reduced staff and telephone hold times went up. And I brought you documentation. You went through your legislative process, noticed Sacramento Cable Television that hold times have been in excess. You gave them a reasonable time period to remedy that. It continued in defiance of your customer service regulations. You could go right up to Comcast Corporation, and they are the guarantor of the franchise, and let them and Wall Street know that your cable company here is not complying. Those standards, as well as many others, are in your customer service regs. They are now bound all the way up the chain.
Thank you.
Wow. Sorry, the speaker list looks long.
Could I ask, as we begin on the speakers, and you'll be watching time, I know, I just think it's important that for those of us who are members of the Air Quality Maintenance District, that we have an executive session for that district that starts at 5 o'clock. Roger is the chair of that district. Let's see, Dave's on that board. Robbie's on that board.
Oh, not me, Don.
You're not on it now. Okay, so it's 1, 2. There's 4 of us, so.
So we would lose our quorum anyway, so I think we would be out of business if we didn't all get done on time.
I just think it's important that we keep
and I would
trying
ask
to press.
the speakers try not to be too repetitious in repeating things that other people are saying, and as much as you can get to your point, and we'll give everyone a chance to speak and get out of here by 5 o'clock. So.
Sounds optimistic. Good.
Well, I got my fingers crossed. Kings. David Reidinger.
I have nothing more to say other than a personal thank you to the members of this commission, to your staff, to Harriet and Rich for their work with us, to the public, educational, and government access folks who were very gracious in hosting me, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Malcolm Weintraub.
Lawyer doesn't have anything to say.
Amazing, Malcolm.
Penny Costanis.
Very quickly, and I will not take too long. I had some prepared statements, but I won't make all of those. I'm Penny Costanis. I'm the incoming chair for SECC, and I'm from the Sacramento County Office of Education. Educational community has provided tremendous financial support for educational cable. SECC documentation shows that for every dollar supplied by the Cable Commission, the educational community spends $4. Currently, the Commission and SCT, Sacramento Cable, provides less than 20% of the total operating expenses for the 2 channels. That means that this community, as far as education is concerned, has made a major commitment to cable. And the speakers that we have today, and I'm glad that you're saying we will keep it limited, are here on behalf of the educational community to provide a brief overview, a very brief overview, of the many facets of the educational cable in Sacramento. Each speaker will address the different aspects of educational cable services. You'll hear from Superintendent, and I did see Carl Mack. He's in the audience, I think, still, or did he have to go? He had to leave. I'm sorry. Carl Mack from Del Paso was here. He's the superintendent of that district. We have administrators from local districts, teachers, students, university representatives, community college representatives, large districts, small districts, and cable subscribers. SECC's main concern is to ensure the quality service Sacramento has come to enjoy, and I heard this as the commissioners were speaking, with Sacramento Cable be maintained. To seek assurance that the transfer will provide an environment to maintain the service while allowing SECC to continue expanding its resources in Sacramento. And I also have some letters that we had some people that were not able to attend. One in particular was Ray Tollefson, superintendent of schools from San Juan. And I'd like to give them to be handed out, possibly Ray. Thank you very much.
Ron Cooper.
Ron Cooper, Executive Director of Access Sacramento. I'd like to, if possible, relinquish this time to our Chair, Bill White, to comment on behalf of the organization and also to offer my thanks in terms of the job well done by all parties. And we appreciate working together to this point and look forward to bigger and better things in the future. And if our chair could speak on behalf of Access Sacramento.
Fine.
Thank you.
Mr. White?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Bill White. I am the chairperson of the Board of Directors of Access Sacramento, and I have a very brief prepared statement that I would like to read into the record with your indulgence. On behalf of the board, on behalf of our staff, and on behalf of the Access Sacramento members. Our recent discussions with Comcast executives, particularly Wayne Vall, the general manager, have been most productive. He has promised to work with the community programming grantees and has encouraged a climate of mutual trust and respect. This open process is refreshing and certainly welcome. Our research on Comcast's previous experience with public educational and government access has clearly illustrated that Sacramento County residents enjoy unique and valuable informational and educational services far different from other cable cities of similar size. Access Sacramento appreciates the invitation to participate in this review and thanks the Cable Commission for your diligent efforts and on behalf of the community. And in the event that you have any questions on our participation in the review process, our Executive Director Ron Cooper and our Attorney Craig Paul are here to address those concerns. Thank you.
Mr. White. Any questions? I have a note here asking about other grantees, but you didn't submit a speaker sheet, so I'll assume that you'll remain silent. Okay. Bob Schultz.
I'm Bob Schultz. I'm a curriculum coordinator from Rio Linda. We have about 21 schools and 10,000 students, and I wanted to get an idea of what cable is like at the schools. And I visited one of the schools today, and the librarian was explaining, who sort of runs the show on cable there, was talking about what happens at that site, just as an example, that she says when the cable in the classroom comes in, they put it out, and teachers look through there, and she looks through there and finds anything that's going to come up in the next month, and then they try and set down a schedule and warn the custodians not to turn off the VCR at the wrong time and things like that to get everything recorded. And sometimes they can come in and watch it when it's actually being shown, if that works out. But a lot of the things are taped, and they even have a little sheet that they give them to write down the date so they can keep track of copyrights and all those kinds of things. But it was nice to see the process, and not all the schools have it to that depth, but a lot of them just showing the importance of that programming, that they try to really connect it at their curriculum meetings to find something that fits in with the 6th grade social studies or the 5th grade science and things like that. So it's been very valuable to them. A couple other things from our district that have been valuable, just connected to SECC and SAC Cable. This year, 2 of our teachers got to go to Panama as part of a program which fits in with, it's down at the Discovery Museum, had their grand opening of the display on that, and it was really exciting to set up sort of a sister school relationship that all came about because of our connection with SAC Cable and with the SECC. So that's been really valuable. 2 other things. One of them is just the videos. We've had some videos prepared with the help of SAC Cable to show some things about we have a very special education preschool. And there was a video that was prepared that I just saw last week showing how that transition for these kids that need a little extra help before they even get to kindergarten, and how they set up that program. And John Mills and some people set up a video in cooperation with that. And the last thing I had was just saying how much I appreciate being part of SECC, to be a committee or a panel that has everything from preschool up to community colleges and colleges and things like the Discovery Museum all in one place. You don't get that many opportunities to have that kind of a group come together. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Grayling Love. Joe Tallarico.
Cox, members of the commission. My name is Joe Tallarico.
Chairman Pratt.
He's Pratt.
Pratt. Excuse me about that. I'm promoting you.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
I'm curriculum technology specialist for Sacramento City Unified School District, and I'm going to be as brief as possible because I know some of the other people are addressing some of the same issues. We have 90 sites and 50,000 students that have the possibility of accessing the information, and I would say that if the current conditions are not continued, we could have an outcry that you wouldn't want to hear. So I encourage you to go through with this thing. One of the interesting things that we did is we did a survey recently of the school sites, and several things came out that I thought were very important. They access all types of channels, but I don't think that that's a critical issue because that happens in all districts. But one of the questions was asked, are students interested in high school credit courses via teleconferencing? We had 21% of the students responded that they would like to do it during classes. 38% would do it after school, and 42% would do it on weekends, including Saturday and Sunday. I think that's a very strong message reaching an awful lot of people. Our district librarian has developed an extensive library based on teacher requests to find information and store it available for the teacher use in all areas of science, math, history, etc. I think the two most exciting things that we have going right now is at Luther Burbank High School, in conjunction with Allen Technologies and Sacramento Cable, SECC, is developing a distributive video network. Every classroom in the school has television sets. There's a distribution center located in one of the major laboratories that's set up at the school site, which gives access to anything that comes over cable. Teachers can program when they want to see programs. They can program and tape materials to be used throughout the school site and multiple times. That is a $100,000 plus installation that's being supported by Allen Technologies. And the exciting thing is I got a phone call today from Sacramento Cable, and they have upgraded the connection up to fiber optics so that we're now ready to go into that school site with a stronger signal. And one of the things I think is exciting is that is targeted to become a distance learning center and also used as a teleconferencing learning center. Excuse me. Secondly, Johnson High School, a potential here that we're working on a fiber optics hookup at Johnson High School to provide access to not only cable but internet and also teleconferencing and distance learning. Both of those sites that I just mentioned will become national models. Luther Burbank High School, by the way, has a sister classroom in Williamsburg, Virginia. That is an operation. We should be in operation before the end of the summer. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Tallarico. John Webb.
Chair, would you?
Sam?
We're not going to make 5 o'clock at this rate.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is John Webb. I am an instructor for the Sacramento County Office of Education, Regional Occupational Program. I teach a course in television productions called Television Occupations, and it's open to any high school student, junior or senior, and any adult in the Sacramento area, and it's free for any high school student. I'd like to, with your indulgence, take a few minutes to show you some examples of the last 3 semesters of student work. It's a 55-second videotape. I understand they have it back ready to go. And you will see a few seconds of several different video student productions. It's a PSA announcing our course and how people can get involved in it. This is part of a partnership agreement that we've worked out with Access Sacramento. We've been using the Access Sacramento facilities now for the last 2 or 3 years. And we've expanded that partnership now to continue with the purchase of $80,000 worth of new equipment that the students can use, shared with community volunteers. It's a very exciting program. I think the videotape here is 55 seconds, so it'll go real quick. I think the videotape pretty much will explain it by itself. This was produced, by the way, by one of my students, Mary Kay Whitestone, who's also your employee. As I understand, she's working back there today. She's the director of this program right now, going out on Metro 14. She did this with the help of a fellow student she produced it, and it was edited by a fellow student. The 2 of them worked as a team. His name is Ken Phelps. Let's take a look at it.
Let's turn it off.
the occupations. Call 1-800-467-4ROP for your television code.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I have a comment. I know many of us have things to do before 5. We won't get to this, but my question is, I guess you have a lot of speakers. Is there my concern would be, is there anybody here speaking against the acquisition? And I guess that's really what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think when we look at programs or people want to come support the program, I think there's a time for that when we look at each of the programs. But right now, I think we're dealing with the acquisition. And I'd much rather you go through and or ask the people in the audience who wants to speak against the acquisition if we're to do business.
And ladies and gentlemen, I really do. We all hate to put the rush on this, but we have to vote on this yet. And by 5 o'clock, we have to be out of here. And I'll take Mr. Pennell's suggestion and ask if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to speak against this project. If not, I'm going to sincerely ask for your apologies. We'll get can we do anything with getting the names and so on in the record?
Read them into the records.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I just have mentioned to Liz, and I went to the back, that most of the presentations I think are appropriate in the context of your budget considerations, your detailed budget considerations at your next meeting, with apologies extended and indulgences. Why don't we ask these people back at your August meeting?
Mr. Pastor, I really don't have a problem. That's what I thought it would be, but it just seems like we're dealing with the acquisition piece and everybody's trying to show their program. And I know we're under time restraint here because we won't have a quorum.
How about if I read the names into the record?
I think that's important to do because it's a public hearing, and if they have something really pertinent that they think affects the transfer and all the points brought out by Rich, then that's pertinent. Or if they're opposed to it and they have reasons they want to put in, then they could come up at that point. But if they are in support of what they understand are the documents now, then they could just indicate that.
Yeah, we may have to reconvene out on the street to get this done. George Madovi.
Madovi Schools, yeah.
Penny Manson. Claire Weingold. Jack Stockman. Darlene, is it Madel? Madel. Thank you. I can't make out the first name, but Padilla?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, he left.
Paul, is it Winkle? Thank you. Andrea Valdez? Kirk Wyking? Thank you, Kirk. Carl Mack?
Carl had to leave.
Spencer Fruand? Heidi Blackman?
Even for New Jersey.
I shot at you. Thank you. Joe Parent, or Parenti? Thank you. Is it Carl Burton?
Support the preservation.
Thank you, Carl. Joanne Engel?
Community producers supported 100.
Thank you. Roger Crum? Thank you, Roger. And Natalie Evans? Thank you. Dr. Cecil Canton? Thank you, Doctor. With that, we'll close the public hearing. Is there any last comments from the council? I mean, the commission. And there better not be. No, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members, it is recommended that you adopt the attached resolution, including the findings, conditions, and agreements set forth within it to become effective upon receipt from the new franchise and licensed entities of executed certificates of acceptance and guarantee, and filing with the clerk of the commission of the required insurance and bonds, as well as receipt of an indemnification executed by Scripps Howard Incorporated.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and I will comment, I don't know whether Rich has, that there's still some paperwork to be done.
Yes.
And that'll be brought forward in the future. So we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Chair, just to speak to the motion, I want to commend all the parties, all those that attended today that didn't get to speak, but certainly have followed this, as well as all those that did get to speak. And I think there's been a tremendous amount of effort that's gone into this, not only from staff, but certainly from the Comcast folks. But the community has made our system one that I think is a model for anyone in the United States as far as community programming, but I think from other aspects as well. I think that it's reflected today, not only the interest in this hearing, but certainly the work that's gone in to bring this to us. Even though it may have taken a couple of hours, I think that this could have been a very tumultuous hearing under different circumstances, and I think that this certainly reflects well on everybody who's been a part of this process, and I'm pleased that we're here where we are today.
I think we'll all say amen to that.
Yes.
Sure.
Sure, we want to compliment all the parties to this effort, and I know it's a major undertaking, and I'll express our appreciation to you. So we have
Mr. Chair, I just
Glad you all came, too. Thank you.
I just can't let this go by without mentioning that my colleague, Mr. Cox, is concerned about this channel alignment. He's mentioned it twice today, and I wondered, with the technology that Comcast has, is it possible, like when some of the hotel rooms I've stayed in, you turn it on, and it automatically goes to a channel? Could we integrate that so when everybody in Sacramento turns on their TV, 14 would pop up?
It would only be necessary.
That is so outrageous. I can't believe it.
Mr. Chairman, let me speak to that.
I'm beginning to think, Robbie, you hanging out with Cox now.
I tell you, it's only necessary, by the way, that we do that on certain days. Tuesdays and Wednesdays and Thursday
Monday
night.
through Sunday, right?
We want people to visit Sacramento.
Yeah.
Don't believe it.
We do have a program. It's called As the County Turns on Channel 14.
All right, we have a
Want to call the
motion
roll?
and a second. Enough jocularity and mirth. Call for the vote.
Cox,
Aye.
Collin,
Yes.
Natoli,
Aye.
Dickinson,
Aye.
Yee,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Pennell,
Aye.
Pratt.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your work.
Are we going to go
Can
on?
we pop the corks and champagne?
Quickly,
No.
10 seconds.
We got more to go. More to go.
One quick,
Yes, Mr.
a lot
Bell.
of paperwork still has to be done, but on behalf of EW Scripps, they have, want to thank you for the opportunity to serve your community. They have been an excellent corporate citizen. There have been trials and tribulations, but they are proud to have served you. We are being replaced with a impeccable telecommunication provider, but Scripps wanted to thank you. I thank you on their behalf.
Well, Mr. Bow, let me just say this. There's been a lot of trials and tribulations prior to you. We're just hoping that we're a little focused and we have a little vision and that we've calmed a lot down. So you got a lot on your shoulder, homeboy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
Shall we continue the...
Very quickly, item 3 was a report back from Ken, which I believe was a report to say the affirmative action filing was satisfactory.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Ken.
thank you very much.
Rich, just so you have one more item. Council July.
I'm sorry?
Council July meeting.
Right, well, the July meeting will be canceled because we won't be here on the 4th of July.
Yes.
That's right.
And so our next meeting is
August 1st?
August 1st. Thank you.
And just a procedural question, will we be inviting some of these folks back would that be the appropriate time if they didn't get a chance to present? Okay.
With the request to go through the grantee budgets, we'll invite these folks back.
Okay. Ken.
Okay. Ken?
Good afternoon again. I'll be very brief in terms of the report. You have the information in front of you. Just highlight a few things as it relates to the performance of Sac Cable in terms of their AA for 1995. In terms of the occupational categories, they've reached parity in 4 of the 7 for minorities and women. The workforce, even though there's been a decrease of 11.6% over the previous year, they showed an increase in terms of females, a 2% increase, and the representation for minorities also also decreased by 23 positions and 15.4%. The level of representation for minorities and females, even though there was a decrease, remained relatively the same, and for females it increased by 4%. About 61 hires for 95. Again, the averages are in compliance with industry standards in terms of minority and females relative to applicant or availability. Promotions for the year, again, the minority and female promotion level was very good in the sense of the representation of those groups within the workforce. And I believe the applicant flow data shows that SAC Cable has been very successful in their outreach to women and minorities. The affirmative action goals are adequate to improve the areas that showed a need for improvement, and the only recommendation I would have would be that the publications listed would be amended to include groups that reach females. So I think all in all it shows an improvement over last year's report, and we're basically providing it for file.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there, and I'll move to the public opportunity to speak. And is there anyone in the audience that has positively asked to address this body?
We have no speaker friends.
All right, thank you. And with that, the meeting's adjourned.
You're welcome.
You're going to get a couple of minutes.
Wayne, congratulations.
I will.
Hey, have a good time.